Star Wars on Disney Plus has had some highs and lows, but overall took the Star Wars universe to new places. With the Acolyte cancellation and the reports on Skeleton Crew, you've got to wonder though, is Star Wars TV dead forever? And what are our thoughts on the new direction of Skeleton Crew? Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
After rumors and a whole marketing outreach program from the fans on renewing the Acolyte for a second season, it's been confirmed by Deadline, who had some information fed to them from Lucasfilm, that there will no longer be an Acolyte Season 2.
Oof.
Rough times for fans of the Acolyte. I would have liked to see a second season, but I don't think the first season really showcased the quality of a story that deserved the budget that eventually got given it. About $200 million, 180 or so. I think it was like some insane number of like $600,000 per minute of filmed footage or released footage. So Acolyte, there's been a lot of discussions on the internet around Acolyte and its impact on Star Wars, the impact of the hate campaign against the Acolyte, the impact of fans with the Acolyte. There have been a lot of things. I really think, though, that this is a sign of the headspace that Lucasfilm is in. Lucasfilm is under a lot of pressure right now to deliver some big budget things. And the reason for the Acolyte's cancellation is not enough people watched it.
Yeah.
They said the first 2 episodes were good in terms of the number of people that watched it, but after that it was a drastic drop-off, and the general audience just did not really enjoy it. And a lot of people were attributing the cancellation to the hate campaign. I don't think that is the reason for it. Oftentimes, hate campaigns work well for TV shows because it gives more eyes to the project. There's more people that are typically watching it. So a lot of times hate campaigns work in favor of whatever that project is. And Disney clearly was not canceling it because of the hate it got. There have been reports that internally, if they had the viewership, that there would be a second season. But that just wasn't the case.
It's both surprising to me and not surprising to me that that they didn't get enough viewership, because it really felt like everyone was talking about it, whether or not it was
online,
good or bad.
Though.
Oh, okay.
And that's the difference. Like, this is the big thing, is they don't care about, like, discussion online about specific Star Wars projects is good, but if it doesn't actually carry over to people watching the show, they don't care about it. Online. And then this is the thing, too, with the hate campaign. It's a small percentage of people overall in terms of the broad viewership of a specific show, but that's still a small percentage of any given audience that are just very vocal. Yeah. And again, it's really funny, too, because I saw a bunch of people that were big fans of the Acolyte calling for Kathleen Kennedy to be stepped down because of the terrible decision-making, which is a funny shift because many of these... I won't say many of these people said that they would prefer her to stay in there and supported her against the hate campaigns from the very angry Star Wars fans. But I think it's funny how there's this shift of messaging around support in Lucasfilm. Now, I want to be clear. There were a lot of redeeming factors of the Acolyte. I really enjoyed pieces of it.
Oh, yeah.
I think overall the story itself was terrible. I don't think there was a core story or thing they were trying to say, but I enjoy the individual pieces. I like the idea of the Acolyte more than the actual execution of the Acolyte.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely, it was shaken up too much. Like, there wasn't enough direction. There wasn't quite enough.
They had too many threads.
Yeah, too much going on and not enough punch. Like, there wasn't, they weren't saying anything with it.
Yes.
And Star Wars is kind of all about saying something. So
good shows in general say something. And there's been a lot of things of like, oh, Andor isn't political. It's like, my brother, It is the most political. Literally, Star Wars is the name. Star Wars has always been political.
Yeah.
Everything is it. Mm-hmm. The difference with the Acolyte, though, is it just doesn't have a story that supports what it needs to say. It doesn't have anything to say.
Yeah, and I think that we've been seeing this happen quite a bit, where... I mean, I don't want to bring Mandalorian into this, but I'm going to. Even in Mandalorian, we've been seeing this downgrade in the story, and I think Lucasfilm is seeing that, and I think audiences are seeing that. And
with each subsequent season of the show, it's gotten less and less viewership.
And I think we're all starting to get tired of these shows not delivering on something worthwhile.
Yeah, I feel like Book of Boba Fett and Obi Wan and Acolyte to perspective, but I don't really think Acolyte is in the same boat. But specifically, Book of Boba Fett and Obi Wan fail because they didn't have anything to say with their characters. Yeah. Really? I mean, Book of Boba Fett had something it was attempting to say, but it just didn't do it well.
Yeah.
Which, like, the main reason that those two shows were made was because they could put their names on a show. It wasn't this intention to say, hey, let's tell this story of, like The Mandalorian has something it wants to say. It has this core belief of like someone who was trained in this one way of belief and really was like raised in a cult to push past that cult and to build their own beliefs. Like that is the core of what The Mandalorian is. And then season 2 had like the most emotional end of any of the seasons, really. And then they just took that away. Yeah. They took this very emotional, strong story and then pushed it too far into the direction of like Mandalorian go brr, like kind of thing. It's like, oh yeah, Shiny Man does stuff and he's in Star Wars. Did you know he's in Star Wars? Yeah, he does stuff in Star Wars too.
Yeah, and then they're trying to mix him into more of a universal thing.
Yes,
so
they try to make the MCU of the Mandalorian cinematic universe.
So now they're trying to connect all the threads, and so Mandalorian's getting a little washed out, but he's still a compelling character.
Yeah,
and with things like the Acolyte, they didn't make a compelling character.
Well, they had one
to begin with. Well, they had one.
Come here.
Yeah, that they didn't
stranger.
expect.
Yes.
But then they kind of knew he would be one, but then they didn't play enough with him and didn't make it his story.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do?
Yeah, the whole problem with the Acolyte is anytime you have a twin story, it's a weak premise. I feel like it's overplayed and typically it's done for an impact that isn't really worth it. Because the whole time they're like, oh my gosh, did May do this? No. Did Osha do this? Who did that? Like, oh, they're twins. Do you know that? They look like
they look identical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just a weak foundation, and then they built on top of that. And they built it in a way that, like, I feel like there's some interesting things that the Acolyte is trying to say of, like, the belief of infallibility that the Jedi had, and this belief that they were beyond oversight by the, like, senators and, like, the council. And they had the things that they were trying to say, it just didn't really work out that well.
Yeah. As far as the twin thing goes, there's not a lot. There's things that you could have done to make that different, to make that edgy, to make that more interesting of a premise.
Don't do the mystery thing.
Yeah.
Don't have this,
Stop
did
that.
she, don't they, like, kind of thing.
Also, if you're going to make it a dark side user, make it dark. Like, make her kill her twin or something. Do something interesting.
Have a purpose for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of just a memory wipe and,
Yeah.
choices were made.
Overall, though, like, there's ups and downs with the Acolyte. What do you think of this news that they cancel it and what it says for Star Wars?
I think it's really unfortunate because I feel like if they had given it a second run, they could have polished things up better.
There's a lot of shows that just don't have good first seasons.
Yeah, but they can't really afford bad first seasons. And they shouldn't have bad first seasons. They're throwing so much money at this, and they've got good creative people behind this all. It's just like, what?
Every single episode is a Godzilla -1. And the quality of that versus the quality of this, you just don't necessarily see all of the money. And like, also Star Wars is getting watered down in ways that I don't think is good for the brand overall, and I think Lucasfilm is noticing that. And I think there's this opportunity for them to say, step back, look at what works. Mandalorian clearly works. They know they can make a ton of money if they make a movie about the Mandalorian Grogu. That's why it's called the stupid name, the Mandalorian Grogu, the movie,
so no
whatever.
one gets confused about it.
No one's going to get confused. It's called the Mandalorian Grogu movie. More is expected of Lucasfilm from Disney than they've been able to portray. They've been a money pit. When you look at Indiana Jones, of its $400 million budget or whatever it was, and if you look at the amount of money that's spent on this shows, obviously Mandalorian was lightning in a bottle. You have good like awards kinds of shows with like the with Andor. I think that they keep going because it showcases the quality that Star Wars can be. But everything else is kind of an experiment that doesn't really work out and doesn't seem like they're learning the right things for it.
It's true. It's like it's good for experimentation, but at the same time, maybe they're canceling these things because they know or they see like, oh, we did something wrong here. Let's just can it and do something else.
Yeah, and like there's the reason why I titled this is Star Wars TV Dead, or Star Wars TV is Dead, is because you have reports of Ahsoka being delayed in its writing. You have Acolyte Season 2 getting canceled. You have reports of internal viewers that are kind of reviewing the TV shows and deciding what goes out, watching Skeleton Crew and not necessarily being fully on board with it. You have, I think Skeleton Crew is exciting because it's doing something so different.
Sure.
Where the Acolyte tried to have a lot of things going for it,
They still
Skeleton Crew does.
Yeah.
It's got powerhouse directors for every single episode. People that have already been in Star Wars, like Bryce Dallas Howard, who's done personally some of my favorite stuff in Star Wars. And you have just incredible filmmakers, writers in the writer's room, a good showrunner. Like there's a lot of these things that are going in this show's favor, and it's clearly very different. Well, the Acolyte, I think the Acolyte had good intentions. I think they successfully did the idea where they wanted to unite the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, and the prequel trilogy. And I think they did that in terms of the feel of it. They did a good job of introducing the era of the New Republic, or the High Republic. I just don't think that they had the story to back up the things. It felt like we need to do this thing first and we'll figure out the story later.
I think with the Acolyte, my opinion is they played it safe. I don't think they took as many chances and twists and turns that they could have.
Risks when you have $20 million per episode.
Yeah, but at the same time, we're experimenting here. Like I feel like there was.
That's what I'm just saying. Like they played it safe because they had to because of the budget. And if they need to do something that doesn't play it safe, clearly Acolyte was intended to not play it safe.
Yeah.
Slim down that budget, make it make them be able to do more episodes.
Yeah. Not have the money behind it to make that pressure of like, we have to make this back or something.
Yes. So I think in the future, I don't know if we're going to see these big tentpole consistent things from live action Star Wars that we've had so far. I think we're going to have an animated TV show, and maybe every 2 or 3 years we're going to have a live action TV show, and the rest is going to be movies.
Yeah.
I think we're going into another era where movies are Star Wars again. We haven't had a movie since 2019, and we've seen a lot of different things in that time period. As a content creator, it's great because we have things all the time. As a personal fan of Star Wars, the quality has been missing in a lot of these shows for me personally.
Yeah.
We have standouts like Mandalorian Season 1, somewhat Season 2 for me, but I definitely prefer the first one. Andor Season 1 is incredible. Literally my favorite thing in Star Wars that has ever been done, including the original trilogy, including the prequels.
Woo-wee. Yeah.
Stuff is good here, but I think the consistency and the quality here is missing.
Yeah.
So we've got the idea that Star Wars TV is slowly going away, but before it does, we obviously have Andor Season 2 that's coming sometime next year. We've got Ahsoka Season 2 that is going to come at some point when Dave Filoni finishes writing it and going through that whole review process. I also think Ahsoka Season 2 probably a topic for another time, has a lot more weight on its shoulders than it did before. And I think that's because of the Mandalorian Grogu movie, but that'll be a topic for another day. But also we've got Skeleton Crew.
Yeah.
So Skeleton Crew was supposed to come out years ago. It was supposed to come out around this time a few years ago. It was announced. It was ready to go. It seems like it's been ready for quite some time. It was originally on the slate for, I think, a year or two ago, got delayed, kind of fell off the face of the planet. But now we finally have, we had a trailer at Star Wars Celebration last year. We have an official trailer now, and we have a release date, December 3rd. And it is very exciting. It's a very different look for Star Wars.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how it does as far as like viewership, and
I hope it's very popular. I think it's going to be hated. And I hate to go into a show, but I talked about this in a video that I made. I feel like Star Wars is going to get a lot worse online before it gets better. And Acolyte, whether Acolyte was good or not, this is before Acolyte came out, and whether Acolyte was good or not, it is going to be a turning point for online discussion around Star Wars. And I've been proven right so far.
Yeah.
But Skeleton Crew, I think, looks pretty good. I'm tentatively very hopeful.
It looks really clean. Like, it looks like high production.
You can see the money.
Yeah, which we like to see, because if they're going to put that much money behind this stuff, you might as well go all into it.
Yeah.
I better see it. It is interesting that you say about, like, the online discussions and stuff like that, and Acolyte paving the way and stuff. It does kind of seem like the shows that we've been getting so far has been kind of paving the way for lower expectations and disappointment. But I think this could be a really, no matter what happens, this is going to be a really interesting thing for Star Wars.
Yes. It's going to push Star Wars further than it's ever been pushed, I think.
Yeah. I do say interesting in both the sides, the good interesting and the bad interesting. To me, it does feel like a much farther pull away from what Star Wars has always been. We've always kind of seen Star Wars as a more mature audience.
It's a story for children, but it's told through the lens of adults.
Yeah. So I'll be really interested to see how they still capture Star Wars through children for young and old audiences.
Yes. There's potential here. Obviously, we have Stranger Things as the clearest example of this, going really well, connected with audiences. The kids did a very good job acting. But the problem is, Stranger Things wasn't based off of Star Wars. It was a new IP, and it didn't have those expectations on it. I do think the quality of the filmmakers are really going to stand out for this. You can already see it in the trailer. It's a really unique view. The cinematography is some of the best in Star Wars already, just from the clips that we've seen. They're going at it from this direction of, like, we're trying to make an Amblin style show.
Right.
1980s Amblin, kids, you think E.T., think Goonies, think those types of stories, and that's the direction that they want to go in. From this trailer, I think the vibe is definitely there, with the space bikes and the kind of the space suburbia. I also love this idea that there are various versions of Star Wars. There are various types of planets. Not everything has to be a green planet or a sand planet or whatever individual type of thing.
Yeah.
I think there is space in Star Wars to have this. Just like Coruscant is a city planet, you can have a suburbia planet. Like, I would love, I love this idea that this suburb planet is a planet that supports the economy of a different planet. Like, I love this. Like, maybe it's a moon of this wider planet that has a very, maybe it's a resource that is very valuable but doesn't lend for life on that planet.
True.
I just think there's some cool ideas there that they could play with, and maybe they expand it in a book or something. But I love this idea that they're pushing Star Wars a little bit further. I think Skeleton Crew is going to be this good test to see what they can do in Star Wars and what the reaction is. I just hope that there is enough here that supports itself, has a good story, obviously looks good, is well acted, all that stuff. I just hope that there's, like, redeeming qualities in and of itself that no matter if there is a hate campaign, there probably is. There's probably always going to be a hate campaign on everything.
Yeah.
I hope that there's something good here and it's enjoyable. It expands the Star Wars in a way that works well and tells a good story. Literally, I don't care what it does to Star Wars. My main thing and the reason I love Star Wars in the first place is it told an interesting story that tried to say something. Yep. And that's my ultimate goal and want for whatever comes out of Star Wars.
For viewership, it's going to be interesting. They really have to hit a sweet spot, especially with all that they're trying to achieve, as far as like being Goonies-esque, but still Star Wars and still an interesting story.
Not super campy, but campy enough to like work on that way.
Yeah, and to be nostalgic, but still something new and fresh. And it's like, we're dealing with a lot of stuff here, and I think that's my biggest worry is just that they're going to kind of miss somehow with all that they're trying to achieve. But yeah, honestly, if it's a good story, I can overlook a lot of things.
Exactly. And that's the problem. Like, there were redeeming qualities with the Acolyte, but there wasn't a story that tied me in hard enough to make me super interested. A lot of good threads, a lot of things that they could do, but I mean, the Acolyte is perfect grounds for some fan fiction. Like,
oh my gosh, yes.
Already, even just from the Enemies of Lover piece, like, you know, I know there's already a bunch of fan fiction on that alone. Woo. But there's a lot of ideas that they played around with that I think is better from all the various interpretations of it than the actual thing itself. But I think Skeleton Crew has a lot of potential here. It looks super fascinating, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
For sure.
Let us know your thoughts on the death of Star Wars TV, and also, what are your thoughts on the Skeleton Crew trailer? Let us know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or contact uplinkpodcast.com if you're listening to this wherever you find podcasts. As always, thank you for listening, and may the Force be with you.